Alright guys, so let's get started. Here I have my actor Craig, who's looking pretty psychotic at this stage of the scene. You know, he's a pretty cool guy. He was willing to work for free in exchange for a tank of gas, ironically enough. This is actually a soft air gun. It's not a real gun. Never use real guns. Will only lead to trouble. Anyway, here is the final shot. That looks pretty cool. So I'm going to show you guys how to create this effect. And you know, I've seen a lot of tutorials out there showing how to do this on After Effects, but very few of them show you how to do it on Final Cut Pro. This tutorial is going to take a little bit. It's not going to be a 3-minute tutorial. I'm just trying to get through this as fast as possible because I know you guys want to just do this already. 5 elements really. I have a big muzzle, a small muzzle. I have smoke. I have a shell coming out of the gun. And I have environmental lighting applied to 2 frames here. In this case, Craig was in an underground parking lot, which, you know, had low ceilings and close walls. So we figured, you know, we're just going to light up the whole thing. So let's start checking out the elements one by one. I used the stuff that comes with the Action Essentials Pack 2, which you guys can get over at videocopilot.net. It's $99 and is a good investment if you guys want to, you know, make things look professional and real with your productions. Otherwise, you guys can just find this stuff on just by doing a search on Google Images. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect these layers so that we can go frame by frame, layer by layer. So here we have him, you know, about to shoot the gun. The first thing that I did was add the big muzzle flash. Sorry. Obviously, you know, this is just one frame, so you want to exaggerate the shot as much as you can. So just make it big. It's okay. You know, it looks like a flamethrower here, but it's only one frame, and it looks pretty freaking awesome. Now, one of the most important things also is your composite mode. You always want to do add or screen because it just blends your element better with the environment around it. The smoke is actually blending in with the metal part of the gun. After this big one frame muzzle flash, you have a smaller muzzle flash, which I'm going to turn on right now, which is right there. Third up is my smoke charge, which you guys can see right here. And that's basically an animation of just smoke coming out. And I'm going to show you guys that in the Action Essentials pack, the smoke that I used is actually much, much longer, and it's much, much thicker. But I only used this part right here to simulate the smoke coming out of the gun. Last but not least, I actually have one more after this one, is a cool little thing that we did, which, you know, you'll see in very, very few visual effects shots, especially on YouTube, which is the shell coming out of the gun. I just grabbed this animated shell and I made sure that it would fly out of frame in less than 2 frames, because you don't want it to take too long. You want to make sure that everything makes sense here. And the moment that you start designing an effect like this, you got to ask yourself, you know, what makes the most logical sense here? You know, what do I start with? How do I make this look? And how do I make sure that this looks real? So now you have an understanding of how all these elements are tied together. As you can see, you know, this whole thing is really only about 8 frames in length, half of that being the gun firing. Also, something to think about is your sound design. Your sound design is so important because you're creating something that's not there. So if you have, for example, you know, a gun that's firing in an underground parking lot, you know, and you have, you know, this shell, for example, that's coming out and it's falling on cement, you want to make sure that you add that sound of the gun, of the shell, sorry, hitting the ground. And the 5th element is actually me duplicating 2 frames of this shot, which happens right when the gun fires. So some tutorials will tell you to basically mask the hand and mask a little bit of his face and just throw light into those areas. But because this is such a small space, everything's going to be lit up by this giant flame. So it's super simple. All you guys do is we'll start with the bottom layer here. What I did was I just grabbed the 2 frames, which is when the gun blows back, and then I duplicated the layer, put it on top right here, and I literally just, on the composite mode, I selected screen. And what that does is that it really lights up, you guys can see the difference there. It lights up your frame so that it looks like everything is being lit up. And then I decrease my opacity on that layer too, just my own taste. Last but not least, I'm going to show you guys the more complicated part of this composite, which is basically making sure that this shell flies out of the gun in a way that it makes sense. So as you can see, you know, it starts not upright, but somewhat, you know, tilted to the right, and then as it's moving up, it changes its trajectory, and then it flies off the screen. So this is really simple keyframing in Final Cut Pro, with one added bonus, which is grabbing the pen tool and really changing the trajectory of the way the bullet flies. Because if it goes up, it's going to come down with gravity. So you want to make sure that, and I'm just a perfectionist, but you know, I don't want to animate the bullet to fly straight like that. I want to give it like a curve. And that's pretty much it. And also, when you start on your first frame right here, and you want to duplicate this effect for your next shot, your next gunfire, make sure that the first frame starts differently. So in this case, you know, I have my rotation set at 239. On the next one, you know, change the bullet around to maybe, you know, I don't know, 129 or 130, so that if you have 8 shots being fired at the same time, like Craig did here, so that it doesn't look like you're just copying and pasting an effect. And basically, you know, play around with your composite modes, your opacity, and the way that you animate this entire shot to create a really, really realistic muzzle flash. And you know, that's pretty much it.
But you won't even fucking start! Die!